Alien girl returned to the human who helped her stand. Her reason was warmer than rescue. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Ethan Carter stood on the edge of the forest, his eyes scanning the horizon, waiting for something that he couldn't quite explain. A few days had passed since he had last seen Zara, the alien woman who had fallen into his care. He had helped her when no one else would, when she was on the brink of death, alone in a harsh world that didn't understand her. The memories of those moments, the way her eyes had softened as he helped her stand for the first time, kept him up at night. He had always been a man of action, quick to help others, but Zara had been different. There was something about her, something that went beyond her alien nature, that tugged at his heart. She was strong, fierce, and yet, in his presence, vulnerable in a way he hadn't expected. He had done his best to keep her safe, but when the time came, she had disappeared, leaving only a note. "I must go, but I will return," it had read, written in the strange, elegant script of her people. Now, Ethan stood waiting, unsure of what exactly he was waiting for. Was it the promise of her return, or something more? A faint rustling in the trees broke his concentration. He turned, his heart skipping a beat when he saw her. Zara was back, but she wasn't just returning to thank him or to repay him for saving her life. No, her reason was far deeper and warmer than he could have imagined. Her tall, graceful figure emerged from the shadows, her bright, violet eyes locking with his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was no need for words. Zara had come back, and this time, it was different. The coldness that had once surrounded her was gone, replaced by something new, something vulnerable. She walked toward him, each step filled with purpose. Ethan's heart pounded as he took a step forward, but before he could say anything, Zara spoke first. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft, yet filled with determination. "You helped me stand when I couldn't. But now, I return not because of that." She paused, her gaze never leaving his. "I return because I want to stand by you, and not just as someone you helped. I owe you more than just my life, Ethan. I owe you my heart." Ethan stood frozen, the words sinking in, but it took a moment for him to find his voice. Zara, he didn't know what to say. His mind raced with questions, with thoughts of what this meant for them. But deep down, he knew the truth. What had started as an act of kindness had blossomed into something far greater, something neither of them could have expected. Zara stepped closer, her presence overwhelming in a way that made his heart ache. "You showed me kindness when I didn't believe I deserved it. You gave me strength when I had none. And now, I want to be the one to stand beside you, to share in whatever comes next." Ethan swallowed hard, his emotions swirling. There was no denying the pull he felt toward her, the way her words stirred something deep inside of him. He had always been alone, always kept his distance from others, but Zara had changed that. She had broken down the walls he had spent years building. And now, as she stood before him, he realized that he wasn't alone anymore. He wasn't the only one who had been saved. Zara had saved him too. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "But now I see that maybe this is what I've been waiting for all along." Zara smiled, a smile that was soft, yet full of understanding. "Maybe we were meant to find each other, after all." And with that, the distance between them closed, not just physically, but emotionally. Zara's return wasn't just about rescue. It was about something far deeper. It was about two souls finding each other in a universe filled with infinite possibilities. And as Ethan held her close, he knew that this was only the beginning of their story, a story that would transcend all boundaries and show them both what it truly meant to stand together. The days that followed were filled with a sense of anticipation, and yet, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change between them. He spent his time with Zara, getting to know her in ways that transcended the simple rescue he had once offered. Her presence was comforting, yet there was a tension that lingered in the air, an unspoken understanding between them that neither could ignore. Zara, who had once been distant and cold, now seemed like a different person. She moved through their days together with a quiet grace, her sharp alien features softening under the warmth of Ethan's company. Her strength was evident, but so was her vulnerability. The more they spent time together, the more Ethan saw her not just as an alien, but as someone who had been deeply hurt, someone who was still trying to find her place in a world that didn't understand her. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden hue across the landscape, Ethan and Zara sat on the porch of his small cabin, watching the colors of the sky change. The silence between them was comfortable, yet there was something heavier in the air. Zara turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the fading light, and for the first time, Ethan saw a hint of hesitation in her gaze. "Ethan," she began, her voice quieter than usual. "There's something I haven't told you." He looked at her, his curiosity piqued. "You don't have to tell me if you're not ready," he said, his voice soft, understanding. Zara hesitated for a moment longer, then nodded. "I've never had a place where I truly belonged, where I was not just a tool, not just someone to be used for their purposes. On my planet, I was trained to fight, to protect, but I was never taught how to live." She paused, looking out at the horizon, her eyes filled with a faraway sadness. "I thought that coming here, to your world, would just be another mission, another way to escape what I was. But what I found was something I never expected." She turned back to face him, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that made Ethan's heart skip a beat. "I found you, Ethan. And I found a life I never thought I could have." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had never expected her words to hit him this deeply. It wasn't just about helping her stand anymore. It was about something more profound, something neither of them had anticipated. He reached out, placing his hand gently on hers. "Zara," he said softly, his voice filled with the weight of unspoken feelings. "You don't have to be alone anymore. You don't have to carry the burden of your past by yourself. You've got a place here with me." Zara's eyes softened, the walls she had built around herself beginning to crumble, just a little. For the first time since their paths had crossed, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find peace. She gave a small, tentative smile, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop around them. It was a simple moment, yet it held more significance than either of them could truly understand at that point. They weren't just two beings from different worlds anymore. They were two souls, connected by something deeper than survival, something far more lasting. As the night fell and the stars began to twinkle above, Ethan and Zara sat in the quiet, the weight of their shared understanding filling the space between them. They didn't need to speak anymore. The bond they had formed was already unspoken, already solidified. And in that moment, they both knew that their story was only just beginning. The next morning, the sun rose over the landscape, casting its first golden rays across the quiet earth. Ethan stood by the cabin, gazing at the distant horizon, his thoughts still lingering on the words Zara had shared with him the night before. She had found a place with him, a life that had eluded her for so long, and that realization was more powerful than anything he had ever felt before. Yet, as much as he wanted to hold on to that moment, he knew that the road ahead would not be as simple as it seemed. Zara was an alien, a warrior from a far-off world, and the bond between them, though strong, was still fragile. As much as their feelings for each other had grown, they both carried burdens, shadows of the past that needed to be confronted. Zara had never known peace, never had the chance to understand what it meant to live beyond survival. The weight of her past was not something she could simply ignore, no matter how much she wanted to build a new future with Ethan. She had spent so long in isolation, so long fighting battles she never chose, that trusting someone, especially someone like Ethan, felt like a risk she wasn't sure she could take. As Ethan turned to head inside, he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned to find Zara standing there, her silhouette framed by the doorway, her violet eyes focused on him with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. She took a step forward, her expression unreadable, but there was something in her posture that told him she had something important to say. "Ethan," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken emotions. "I need to tell you something I should have said a long time ago." Ethan waited, his gaze never leaving hers, as he sensed the gravity of her words. "You've shown me kindness," she continued, her tone steady but filled with vulnerability. "You've shown me what it means to have something worth protecting, something worth fighting for. but I'm not sure I'm ready to be that person for you. Not yet. I don't know if I can truly belong here, in your world, in this life you've offered me. Ethan's heart tightened, but he didn't speak. He knew her struggle all too well. I've been running from myself for so long, Zara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought that if I helped you, if I gave you something back for all that you've done for me, maybe I could start to feel whole again. But I'm still lost, Ethan. I don't know if I can be the person you need me to be. Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing with thoughts of what he could say to ease her fears. He had no answers, no solutions, but he did have one thing he was sure of. He reached out, taking her hand gently in his. Zara, you don't have to be perfect, he said softly. You don't have to have it all figured out. You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together, whatever it takes. Just don't shut me out. I'm not going anywhere. For a long moment, Zara didn't respond. She just looked at him, her expression torn between hope and doubt. But then, slowly, she squeezed his hand, her grip tightening as if she was making a silent promise. I'm not giving up on this, she said finally, her voice stronger now, though still tinged with uncertainty. But it's going to take time. Time for me to learn how to be who I need to be. Time for me to let go of the past and trust that there's something better ahead. Ethan nodded, understanding more than she realized. They had both come from different worlds, from different lives, and the journey they were about to embark on wouldn't be easy. But together, they could find their way. We have all the time in the world, he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. And for the first time in a long while, Zara allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something better, something worth fighting for, something she could finally call her own. As the weeks passed, the quiet days they spent together began to blur into one another. Ethan and Zara fell into a routine, one built on trust and understanding, though neither of them had fully found their peace. Zara continued to struggle with her past, and while she had made progress, there were moments when she would retreat into herself, the old wounds resurfacing. Ethan knew the journey ahead would be long, but he also knew that every step they took together brought them closer to something better. It was a slow healing process, but each day she stayed, each moment they shared, felt like a small victory. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks, Ethan and Zara sat by the fire outside the cabin. The crackling of the flames was the only sound that filled the air, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down around them. Ethan glanced over at Zara, watching as the firelight danced across her features, her eyes reflecting the flickering warmth. She had grown more comfortable with him, more willing to share parts of herself she had kept hidden for so long. But there was still that distance, that hesitancy, as though she was afraid of getting too close. Zara, Ethan said softly, breaking the silence. I know you're still carrying a lot of weight from your past. You don't have to share everything with me right away, but I want you to know you don't have to face it alone. Zara looked at him, her violet eyes searching his face, as though looking for something she wasn't sure she could find. I appreciate everything you've done for me, she replied quietly, but I'm not sure I can ever fully let go of it. The past, it's who I am. It's what made me the person I am today. Ethan nodded, understanding her words more than she realized. He had his own past, his own demons, and though they were different, he knew the weight of them. I don't want you to forget it, he said gently. I just want you to know that you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Zara turned away, looking into the fire, the flames casting shadows over her face. I don't know if I can ever be what you want me to be, she said, her voice low. I'm still so lost, Ethan. I don't even know who I am outside of all the fighting, all the pain. Ethan stood up, moving closer to her. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes. Zara, he said, his voice firm yet filled with warmth. You don't have to be anything other than yourself. You've been through more than anyone should ever have to endure, but that doesn't define you. What defines you is how you've fought, how you've survived, and how you've kept going even when the world was against you. Zara's eyes filled with emotion, her chest tightening as she struggled to keep her composure. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope, a small crack in the walls she had built around herself. You really think I can do that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan smiled softly, his hand still on her shoulder. I know you can. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was a moment of understanding, of two people finding something they hadn't expected to find. It was the beginning of something new, something neither of them had dared to imagine. As the fire burned down to embers, they sat together, not needing words to fill the space between them. They had come this far together, and for the first time, Zara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find her place here, with him. Maybe, just maybe, she could finally start living again. The next few weeks passed in a way that neither Ethan nor Zara had expected. Their lives had found a rhythm, a balance they both cherished but hadn't anticipated. There were moments of laughter, quiet conversations late into the night, and shared silences that spoke volumes. Ethan had come to realize that Zara was no longer the alien warrior he had first met. She was no longer a stranger from another world, but someone he deeply cared about. And Zara, despite her fears and doubts, had begun to open up in ways she never thought possible. Still, there were days when the weight of her past would creep up on her. It would come in waves, moments of doubt, the lingering memories of the battles she had fought, the people she had lost. There were days when she would retreat into herself, and Ethan would give her the space she needed, knowing that the healing process wasn't something that could be rushed. One such day, as the wind howled through the trees, Ethan found Zara standing by the edge of the forest, staring into the distance. Her posture was rigid, her eyes focused on something he couldn't see. She didn't notice him approaching until he was almost beside her. "Zara," he called softly. She turned, her face unreadable, but there was a faint sadness in her gaze. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" Ethan asked, genuinely confused. "For all of this," Zara replied, gesturing to the world around them. "For dragging you into my mess. For not being able to leave the past behind." Ethan shook his head, stepping closer to her. "Zara, you didn't drag me into anything. I chose to be here with you. And as for the past, you don't have to leave it behind. You just have to make peace with it." Zara's eyes softened, the walls she had built around herself momentarily faltering. "I don't know how," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't have to figure it out all at once," Ethan said gently. "Just take it one day at a time. You've already come so far." Zara was silent for a moment, looking down at her feet. Then, slowly, she turned back to face him. "I don't know how to trust anyone anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I've lost too much, Ethan. I don't know if I can ever let go of the fear of losing more." Ethan took a deep breath, his heart heavy with her words. He could feel the weight of her pain, the burden of all she had carried. But he also knew that the only way she could move forward was if she allowed herself to trust again. "You don't have to do it alone, Zara," he said softly. "You don't have to carry it by yourself. I'm not going anywhere." She met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of uncertainty and hope. For the first time in a long while, Zara allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something better. "I want to believe that," she said quietly. "But it's hard." Ethan smiled, his hand gently brushing her arm. "I know it's hard, but you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to be perfect. Just take it one step at a time, with me by your side." Zara took a shaky breath, a small, tentative smile tugging at her lips. "One step at a time," she echoed. "Yeah, one step at a time." And in that moment, they both understood that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when the past would threaten to pull them under. But as long as they faced it together, one step at a time, they would find a way through. Slowly, Zara reached out, taking Ethan's hand in hers. It was a small gesture, but to both of them, it felt like the first real step toward healing, toward something more than just survival. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one they would write together. The days began to blend into one another, and with each passing day, Zara felt herself growing more comfortable in Ethan's world. They worked together, side by side, learning how to navigate this new life they had begun to build. Ethan had created a space for them both, a life rooted in simple routines, but it was a life that felt more real than anything Zara had ever known. Still, there were moments when the weight of her past threatened to pull her back into the darkness. On those days, Ethan would give her the space she needed, but he would always be there when she was ready. One evening, as the sun set, casting long shadows across the landscape, Zara found herself sitting on the porch once again, staring into the distance. Ethan noticed her quiet demeanor and approached, sitting beside her without saying a word. The two of them simply sat together, the silence between them speaking volumes. Eventually, it was Zara who broke the stillness. "Ethan," she began softly, her voice hesitant. "Do you ever think about the future? About what comes next?" Ethan turned to her, his eyes focused on her face, his expression gentle. "I think about it every day," he said, his voice steady. "But more than anything, I think about what we have right now. This moment, and the next, and the one after that. It's not about rushing forward. It's about being here, with you." Zara glanced down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting nervously. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to, but sometimes I feel like I'm just pretending. Pretending to be someone I'm not. Someone I can never fully be." Ethan reached out, gently placing his hand on hers. "Zara, you're not pretending. You're here, and that's all that matters. You're stronger than you think. And you don't have to be anything other than yourself." Zara looked up at him, her violet eyes searching his face. "But what if myself isn't enough?" she asked, her voice breaking with vulnerability. Ethan gave her a small, reassuring smile. "What if yourself is more than enough?" he said softly. "You've already come so far, Zara. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just take it one day at a time. I'm here with you, every step of the way." Zara held his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe his words. Maybe she didn't need to have all the answers. Maybe she didn't need to carry the weight of her past alone. Maybe, just maybe, she could start to believe that she deserved something better. The future still felt uncertain, but in that moment, as Ethan's hand rested gently on hers, Zara realized that she didn't have to face it alone. Together, they could figure it out. As the last rays of sunlight faded and the stars began to shine in the night sky, Ethan and Zara sat in silence, not needing words to understand what they had. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was theirs. And for now, that was enough. As the seasons shifted, so did the bond between Ethan and Zara. They had both begun to find their own sense of peace in each other's company, but the world around them continued to move forward. Zara had spent so much of her life running from her past, from the battles she had been forced to fight. But now, as she sat beside Ethan, she realized that there was something she had never allowed herself to truly experience before, a sense of belonging. One afternoon, as the sky turned a soft blue with the promise of a calm evening, Ethan sat on the porch, watching the sun dip lower in the sky. Zara joined him, her movements slow but steady, the weight of her thoughts pressing against her chest. She had been quiet for days, lost in her own world, wrestling with emotions she didn't always know how to express. Ethan had learned not to push her, but he also couldn't shake the feeling that something was on her mind. "Zara," Ethan said, his voice calm but filled with concern. "I know you've been carrying a lot. You don't have to share if you're not ready, but I'm here when you are." Zara didn't respond at first. She stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her face soft in the fading light. The quiet stretched between them, comfortable in its own way. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice quieter than usual, as though the words were fragile. "I've been thinking," she said, her gaze still fixed ahead. "About what you said. About trusting, about letting go of the past." Ethan didn't interrupt, giving her the space she needed to continue. "It's hard," Zara continued, her voice filled with vulnerability. "There are parts of me that I'm not sure I can ever leave behind. Parts of who I was, things I've done. I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be, Ethan." Ethan turned to her, his expression soft but steady. "Zara, I never asked you to be anything other than who you are. I know the past isn't easy to let go of, and I'm not asking you to forget it. I'm just asking you to be here with me, to be present with what we have now." Zara met his gaze, her violet eyes searching his face as though looking for something she couldn't quite find. "But what if who I am isn't enough?" she asked, her voice breaking slightly. Ethan's heart tightened at her words, but he didn't hesitate. "Zara," he said softly, reaching out to gently lift her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You are enough. More than enough. You've already given me something I never expected, a chance to live a life I never thought I could have. And I'm not asking for anything more than that. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you." Zara stood there for a moment, his words hanging in the air between them. Slowly, she nodded, the walls she had built around herself softening just a little. "I want to believe that," she whispered. "I want to believe that I can be more than my past." Ethan smiled, his hand still resting gently on hers. "You are, Zara. You already are." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of the earth and the distant sound of rustling leaves. In that moment, as the sky turned from soft blue to deep violet, Zara felt a sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a place in it. And with Ethan by her side, she knew she wouldn't have to face it alone. As the stars began to twinkle above them, Zara leaned against him, feeling a quiet warmth in her chest. They still had a long way to go, but for now, in the quiet of the evening, it felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. The weeks continued to pass in a peaceful rhythm, but Zara could feel the uncertainty slowly creeping back. Despite Ethan's unwavering support and his belief in her, she had moments of doubt, moments when she questioned whether she truly belonged in this world, or if her past would always be a part of her. As the fall season approached, the days grew shorter, and the air grew colder. Zara found herself standing at the edge of the forest once again, her thoughts a tangle of emotions she could barely untangle. Ethan, ever observant, noticed the change in her and approached quietly. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, offering his presence. "I don't know how to do this," Zara said finally, her voice barely audible against the rustling leaves. Ethan remained silent for a moment, waiting for her to continue. "I don't know how to leave my past behind. Every time I start to feel like I'm moving forward, like I'm living a life that's real, the past pulls me back." Her voice broke slightly as she spoke, a crack in the strong exterior she had carefully built. Ethan took a slow breath, watching the sun dip lower in the sky. "You don't have to leave your past behind, Zara," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "It's part of you. It's what's made you who you are today. But it doesn't have to define you. You're not stuck in it, not anymore. You've already come so far. And I'm right here with you. We don't have to do anything alone." Zara turned to look at him, her violet eyes filled with emotion, uncertainty still clouding her gaze. "I don't know if I can fully trust anyone again," she admitted, her voice heavy with the weight of her admission. "Not even you." Ethan's heart tightened, but he didn't flinch. He had expected this moment, the moment when the wall she had built would slowly start to crumble, when she would confront the full weight of her fears. "I don't expect you to trust me fully right away," he said softly. "I know it's hard, but trust isn't something you can force. It's something that grows over time, piece by piece. All I ask is that you let me be here for you, every step of the way." Zara looked at him, her chest tightening as she struggled with her feelings. She had spent so much of her life closed off, never allowing anyone to get close enough to hurt her. But with Ethan, it was different. She didn't know why, but it was. And for the first time in a long while, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could start to trust again. "I want to believe that," Zara said quietly, her voice filled with a mix of hope and fear. Ethan smiled, taking her hand gently in his. "You don't have to believe it all at once. Just take it one step at a time, just like we've been doing. Together." Zara nodded slowly, her hand trembling slightly in his. "Together," she repeated softly. The wind picked up, and they stood there for a long moment, the quiet between them filled with the unspoken understanding that they were both on this journey together, facing the unknown side by side. Zara didn't know what the future held, and she didn't know how long it would take to truly heal. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to hope. She wasn't alone anymore. And with Ethan beside her, maybe, just maybe, they could build something better, something worth fighting for. The days turned into weeks, and with each one, Zara began to settle into this new life with Ethan. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the past would rise up in front of her, but each day, she found herself facing it a little more. She no longer saw her past as something that would define her, but rather as something that had shaped her into who she was now. Ethan's presence, steady and patient, had allowed her to believe in the possibility of healing. One evening, as they sat by the fire, the soft crackle of the wood filling the air, Zara turned to Ethan. "Do you ever wonder if we're making the right choices?" she asked, her voice soft, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Ethan didn't hesitate. I think we're making the right choice for us, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. Zara looked down at her hands, still unsure of what the future truly looked like. Sometimes I feel like I'm not ready, she admitted. Like there's still too much I need to fix before I can fully be here. Ethan reached out and gently placed his hand over hers. Zara, you don't have to be ready. You don't have to fix everything. You're already enough, just as you are. I'm here, and we're in this together. His words, simple as they were, held a weight that Zara hadn't expected. For the first time in a long while, she let herself believe that maybe she could start to build something new, something that wasn't defined by her past. They sat in silence for a while, letting the warmth of the fire and the comfort of each other's presence fill the space between them. Zara had spent so long hiding from the world, from herself, but now she was learning to face it, to step forward. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of doubt, but with Ethan by her side, she began to see that maybe she didn't have to be afraid of what was to come. Do you think I'll ever find peace? She asked quietly, almost as if she were asking herself more than him. Ethan smiled, his gaze soft and understanding. I think peace is something we find, piece by piece. It's not a destination, it's a journey. And I think you're already on your way. Zara nodded slowly, feeling a small flicker of hope deep inside. Maybe he was right. Maybe peace wasn't something to be found all at once, but something that came with each small step. And with Ethan by her side, she knew she had someone to walk with, someone who would be there every step of the way. The fire burned low, and as the night settled around them, Zara felt something inside her shift. She wasn't the same person who had first stepped into Ethan's world. She had changed, and with each day, she was becoming more of the person she had always hoped she could be. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had a future worth believing in. With Ethan beside her, she knew she wasn't alone. Together, they would face whatever came next, step by step, day by day.